So, again, we're doing the Old Testament for like the 600th time. How many of you have read books of the Old Testament? Just put your hand up. Like, not the whole thing, but just like stories. Even if you've read just stories in the Old Testament. Yeah, a little bit? Yeah? Okay. Okay. How many of those stories do you guys question? Like, do you believe all the stories that you read in the Old Testament?
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah. Any head shakes? No? Yeah? So you guys believe all the stories in the Old Testament? Yeah? Yeah, hey, how you going, yeah? Mm. Did you guys know that there's a story in the Old Testament with a talking donkey?
What? Really?
What? There's a story about how a really poor woman became a queen. There's a story about how there was this really bad emperor that was trying to run away from the people that were trying to kill him, and then a woman actually helped him, fed him, let him sleep, and then she took a peg and drilled it through his skull. Right? It escalated, right? So these, those kinds of stories, those stories are like in the book of Judges, the book of Kings, right? You can make like a whole Netflix series from the book of, like, honestly, like out of the book of Judges, or out of the book of Kings, right? Or any of the books in the Old Testament, right? So a lot of them are actually really, really crazy, okay? But when I said the story of the talking donkey, you were like, because it's literally like one verse, okay? But there are just all these things in the Old Testament that people can pick up on, and they say, oh, but that's impossible. How could that happen? Like Noah's Ark. How is that going to happen? Like, there's no way.
In Genesis, it says that God created Eve using a rib from Adam, but male and female have the same amount of ribs.
Yeah. Does anyone have like a refute against that, or like something to?
Did it literally mean a rib, or like was it metaphorical?
I think it's metaphorical.
You think it's
But it
metaphorical?
says, but it says in the Bible that he was asleep, like he put him in a deep sleep and took him.
Yeah. So to answer that question, yeah.
Like my thinking, like I heard that like we have an extra rib to mess. Do we or not?
Yeah. No. This is good. It's good discussion. Yeah. Yeah. Just listening to each other, girls. So you don't think it's metaphorical? You think it actually happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? It's a really interesting one. Every talk I've been to, like, it always goes back to Adam and Eve. It's crazy.
That's how it started.
It is how it started, right? It's pretty insane. But I'm gonna answer that question throughout this little workshop. Okay. Hopefully, it'll give you the answer that you need. Okay. So, like I said, there's all those kinds of stories in the Old Testament, but like how we just heard in that presentation, even people are still questioning the New Testament and its validity. Was it accurate? How reliable is the book that is the Old Testament, the New Testament, right? So what are the things that maybe we can say about the Old Testament? How accurate can the Old Testament possibly be? It's older than the New Testament, right? So I'm just gonna quickly go through 3 things, okay, about the Old Testament. So we can trust it as a historical book. So if you're that kind of person that really likes to read, about different times of history, research, science, all those kinds of things, they're going to point to the book of the Bible, the book of the Old Testament, the book of the New Testament, as being historically true. Okay? Have you guys read like the book of Judges, for example, or the book of Kings? Yeah? It's okay if you haven't, because when I was your age, I didn't either. Okay? It gives you a lot of historical context, like a lot of history about all these different tribes, and it's just like, I'm a man, like, what's that got to do with me? Okay? And it can be really like disheartening when you read it, and even things like, for example, the book of Numbers. The book of Numbers is literally a census. It's just literally a book of numbers. Like, that's why it's called Numbers, okay? It's a census, okay? It's just like, what's that got to do with anything, okay? But these are things to point to the Old Testament being a historical book, okay? Even historians, yeah.
I feel like people would find it hard to rely on the Old Testament. For example, Moses wrote the first 5 books, but Moses doesn't come into the story until a few thousand years later. So how can we use those small like details in, say, Genesis, where he wasn't even alive, to kind of like strengthen our points on how Christianity is right?
So how can we even trust Moses' first 5 books when he wasn't even alive for the first 5 books? Is that the question? Yeah. How did he write the first 5 books? Were they just stories that he made up? They were inspired by the Holy Spirit, okay? And although he wasn't there, God spoke these words to him, okay? And he said, this is what happened. I want you to make a record of what you have heard through my own words. Even like, for example, the book of Revelations. Like, the end of Revelations hasn't happened yet, but yet John still wrote about it. Because through the Spirit, God has spoken through him and has told him, write what you see and write what you hear. Is that kind of, yeah?
Also, stories like of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they would have been passed down orally from generations to generations.
Yeah. And the thing is, the Jews are very big on like genealogy as well. I don't know if you guys have noticed, like in like the Gospels, like first chapter, it's like Marach Shemim begot Marach Shamin.
I skipped that part.
Yeah, a lot of people skip it, right? Okay, but have you guys ever like had the chance to sit down and actually look through the names that is in the genealogy?
Yeah, what?
There's a prostitute in there. Like, and her story is in the Old Testament. A lot of you were really shocked when I said prostitute. But yeah, right? It's crazy. Her name is Rahab. Look up her story. She's pretty cool. She's pretty sick. But when you look through the genealogy, it's not just there for no reason. It's because the Jews are very big on their lineage and who their forefathers were. It was such a big deal to them, and today it still is. It is still quite a big deal. But they're there for a reason, so that we can actually go back and let's read some of their stories in the Old Testament. And those stories are, again, they're historical as well. Like, these are real people that actually lived among us. Okay, it's pretty crazy. Something that someone once said was, well, what about all those plagues that happened, for example? Like, all the locusts, all the frogs. Like, there's no way there could be like a gazillion frogs just lying around. Okay? What are we currently living through for like almost a year right now? Right? That's like a plague that has swept through the entire globe, basically. So who's not to say that this didn't happen before? We're currently living through one. Okay? It's pretty insane to think that. Okay? So that's another one. And there's so much evidence and so many scientific things that have been brought up in research that are actually validating a lot of the things in the Old Testament, like Noah's Ark. Right? They actually found it. Like, I got goosebumps when I heard that. I was like, whoa. They found the ark that carried all those animals. Okay? So that's it as a historic book, okay? It gives you history, it's human history, okay? Knowing the Bible as a story, okay? The Old Testament as stories. Like I said, there's so many stories in the Old Testament, like a series could be written on it. It's insane. But when you look really, really closely at their stories, they all kind of, you guys have done English, foreshadowing?
Yes.
Yeah, hectic. It all leads to one person, which is Christ. Okay, all these stories of bringing someone that was really lowly to being really, really high, that's a foreshadow of Christ. Okay, bringing someone out of, like a low place and bringing them to redemption, that's like a story of salvation. Okay, have you guys heard of, Noah's Ark being as a metaphor for salvation. You know, like Christ carried he carried our sins on the cross, like how Noah, he built this massive ark out of wood and carried all those people and animals to safety, to that salvation. Okay, so there's those kinds of contrasts that you can make with the characters and the stories in the Old Testament as well. Okay. Is it all making sense so far? Yeah, any questions so far? I'm going to get to your rib question. Okay. So when we read, when you're reading the Bible, just in general, okay, we need to read it through the lens that it's a unified book, okay? And what I mean by that is that, again, all the stories lead to the person of Christ together, okay? None of the stories go against any of the other stories, right? So like how he was saying in that presentation, right? All the disciples made an account and made record of what they saw and what they heard to prove that Christ was the Son of God. He came, he lived, he died, was buried, well, in a tomb, and rose again, okay? And if you look at all the details in their stories, like, nothing is against the other. Like, no one is against the other. Like, they're all pointing to the same truth, right? And you can't argue the truth, okay? And, like, I'm sure you guys have maybe been in, like, situations, you know, especially us as girls, like, we're always getting sucked into situations or, like, dramas at school with friends, family, or what have you, right? And, like, you know, you might have been in a situation where it's like, but I'm saying the truth, right? But no one believes me. Okay, but I'm saying the truth. And whatever someone says against you is obviously not the truth. They're molding it to make it sound like, you know, just to kind of manipulate or to make it sound like how they want it to be like, okay? And same as with the Old Testament and with the New Testament, nothing was changed, nothing was molded because it was all written with truth, okay? There was truth in what was written. In Luke 24, do you guys know the story about after the resurrection when Christ was walking on the road to Emmaus? Yeah, and he was with those two disciples, okay? One of the things that Christ kind of did was he hid who he was from them, right? Until they opened their eyes and saw that it was actually Christ before them. The reason why I'm sharing that is because that's the same lens we can read the Old Testament, is if we read it through the eyes of, this is all leading to Christ. This figure embodies Christ. Okay, that's why we say when we open our eyes, it's enlightened. Okay, so when you read the Old Testament through the lens of the New Testament, because we currently live in the New Testament, you guys know this, right? Okay, like Christ lives among us. It's a crazy thought, okay, but he ascended into heaven. Doesn't mean he's not going to hang around, you know. Okay, but like he's with us in spirit as well. Okay, so when you read the Old Testament through the lens of these people are leading to Christ, leading to the story of salvation, it makes understanding the stories a little bit easier. Even the stories of like kings and judges and like all those really hard books, even Deuteronomy and like Numbers, all those really hard books, makes it a little bit easier saying, okay, I might not understand it now, but when I read it through the notion that it's leading to Christ, then I understand the plan of salvation. Okay. Even like, you know how in the Old Testament, it's broken up into four main. It's broken up into four main books. Fantastic. 4 main books. Okay, so you've got your books of history, which are, things of like judges and kings as well. I mentioned those 2 books specifically because they're amazing and they're really underrated, okay? The books of law, prophecy, and wisdom, okay? Again, when you read all these things, even like with the Psalms and like Song of Solomon, all those like really beautiful poetry, they talk about the bridegroom. They talk about that lamb, okay? You can see that as I'm explaining those things to you. They're all leading to that one that is Christ. And even with Christ, he knew the law. Christ knew the law. Christ knew the history. Christ knew the prophecies. He knew the wisdom, and yet he fulfilled all of it. Okay, so everything that's in the New Testament was first, I guess, written in the Old to kind of reinforce how true it all is. Okay. So I talk about all that, but let's be practical. Okay. How can I apply the Old Testament in my life?
Because we can, like, they didn't see God, so like they had to believe without seeing, and now like we don't have him here, so we have to believe without seeing.
Yeah, so like faith, it's like kind of like that blind faith kind of thing. So although we didn't see what happened, we believe it. That's what faith is, right? Okay, that's good. Another thing is, oh yes.
Maybe like trust God and His promises.
Perfect. Yes, God. Like I know you guys have heard this like a million times. God has a plan. Okay, all those stories in the Old Testament were part of this big master plan of salvation. Okay, they were all leading up to that point. Okay, the prophecies were all there so that when Christ came, people would understand these prophecies were written. I've read these prophecies before. Put 2 and 2 together. Jesus, right? So God has that plan, and it's all happening. Like, you know, it's all happening really fast, and all these really dramatic stories. So one really important thing is that we trust in His word. Back to the rib question. I've heard this one contemplation, and it's so Adam was asleep when God took the rib out of his body, supposedly, apparently as well, people don't believe it, to give to Eve, okay, to make Eve, right? Someone said that when Christ was on the cross, it kind of embodied that same action. That Christ, he is the bridegroom, okay? So there's this whole like anatomy thing when the soldier put the spear in his body, okay, and it went through his rib, okay, like it went head to kidda, right? I'm not great with the body, okay? And so a part of him was given for his bride, which is us, the church. So even something as simple as, you know, making a woman out of man, even goes to pointing towards Christ, okay? That Christ's on the cross, on the wood, okay, which is a really big thing in the Old Testament, by the way. Keep an eye out for it, wood. I know it's weird. He gave a piece of himself for us so that we can have life. And so the same thing with Adam and the same thing with Eve. A piece of himself was given to give her life as well.
I love this one.
Fantastic. So do you have any questions? I'll ask a boy Anthony.